lot of times we far too easily let ourselves off the hook, right? It's the conversation where you're willing to just miss by a little bit. Yet you look in the mirror at the end of the day and you're like, man, I'm killing it. And if you're lying to yourself, you'll never understand what your highest level of performance looks like. And you'll never really understand what it looks like to drive continual peak performance at your highest level.
From a professional soccer career to becoming a driving force in the mortgage industry, Brian Covey has shown what it takes to find your competitive edge, get off the sidelines, and get in the game. Find your competitive edge with Brian Covey.
Welcome back to another edition of Finding Your Competitive Edge. So, for many of you that are listening, you know I've talked about our guest today. He's somebody that's been influential in my life. Not only is he a top 5 performance coach recognized around the world, but he is a best-selling author, speaker, and he works with some of not only the NFL teams, college football. He is the go-to guy, I would tell you, for anybody, not just in sports, but in business, around getting your mindset right, the habits of the top producers, and actually, the word you've heard, the standard. We're going to break all that down with Ben Newman, our guest today, and I cannot wait to jump into it because I can promise you this. The things that I've learned from him over the past few years have not only changed my life from a business and how I attack things there, but even in my personal life this year, where I've made some adjustments. I thought I was living to a certain standard, and I found out I had another gear. And so I want to give you that gift today as we talk to Ben about where in your life are there opportunities for you to attack the process and raise your standards and become that example. So Ben, welcome.
Brian Covey, it is always an honor to be with you. And I'll tell you something really special about our relationship. And I know this is the same for you, the amount of coaching and leadership and just where your brand has gone and the things you're doing, the stages you're speaking on and podcasts and books and everything you're doing. We get calls a lot. And I welcome calls. I welcome people reaching out. I welcome people being part of our communities. But it's always disappointing when somebody reaches out, you have this great conversation, and they take zero action. And one of the things that I love about you is that I know that if you reach out and it's, let's hop on a phone call, or I'd like to run this by you, that not that my advice is always perfect. I mean, I still got 2 coaches. I'm reading books every day trying to figure it out. But I know that if we have a conversation, I'm going to get something from you that's going to help me. And if I share something because you honestly tell me what's going on in your life, and I say, Brian, you should try this, that you're going to try it and you're going to take action. And that's one of the greatest things from a coaching standpoint for me in a relationship is that we have a real relationship where we're honest with each other. But watching you take action and your growth is one of the greatest things that I could ever want in a friendship. So thank you.
My friend, well, it goes both ways. And I've shared this story with people this year. You know, I thought I was at a certain level in my health. And to be vulnerable, people listening is like, I was in good shape, I thought, right? And I'll just call it what it is. We use real numbers in here to measure things. I'm at 15.5% body fat. I'm not happy with that number. I see Ben and shredded. And I'm going, okay, we're around the same age. We're doing the same things. Like, what am I doing wrong? And I started to look at my process and things that I had to be honest with myself. And so I'll tell you this, I'll share with you before we got on live, dropped 5%, changed some habits, changed some of my discipline. So I'd love for you to talk about that because I give that example to people to go, I thought I was good. And in the world's view, some people would have told me, man, you're doing great. Let's talk about what takes people from that good to great that you've seen. You've worked with elite athletes. I mean, even Justin Gatlin was at your event, the last boot camp, and you've worked with Alabama and K-State. What separates those really good from the elite and great ones?
So I would almost, refer to it as relentless accountability to yourself. And I think that that's the piece where a lot of times we far too easily let ourselves off the hook, right? It's the conversation where you're willing to just miss by a little bit. Yet you look in the mirror at the end of the day and you're like, man, I'm killing it. And if you're lying to yourself, you'll never understand what your highest level of performance looks like. And you'll never really understand what it looks like to drive continual peak performance at your highest level. So if you evaluate a Justin Gatlin all the way to somebody pick your favorite athlete, Michael Jordan. There was no negotiation. You know, Justin Gatlin, who would tell you it's fascinating when you hear him break down a race. So you look at Noah Lyles, Justin Gatlin. Gatlin was, you know, to put it in real time, Gatlin was the last to win the 100 meters in terms of Americans to win 100-meter gold. Noah Lyles doesn't. You know, they did it a different way. Their confidence and egos were different, but they both did the little things extraordinarily well, and they look in the mirror and they know exactly what they need to do, and they don't skip steps. Justin Gatlin, so you imagine we watch the 100 meters and you're like, man, that thing was over like that. When you talk to those guys about their preparation, Justin Gatlin will tell you that he would train for 2 to 3 hours coming out of the blocks on his arms, just on his bang, bang, bang. Can you imagine just doing this out of the blocks for 2 to 3 straight hours? Most people would say, oh, I'll go run the 100 X number, just on his start over and over. And Justin would share with you, for me, that 9.7 seconds goes slow. And so to me, that you look at these athletes or business professionals who are so elite, what they're doing slows down for them because of the preparation and work they put into it. You can't lie to yourself to ever get to that level. And so I just encourage everybody as we go through this conversation where Brian and I decided before we hit record, like, let's get real on some of this stuff, that we want to get real. We're not here to call you out. We're not here to embarrass you, because nobody has to post on social media maybe how you think about some of the things that we ask you or encourage you to think about. But I always need to be real with myself, which is why I still have those 2 coaches, because without them, there's things that I miss, Brian. And I believe that we can only lead people to the level of discipline in which we live. And so if I'm undisciplined, if I'm not showing up, or if I don't have coaches scrutinizing my decisions, then I can't drive continual peak performance. There's going to be a miss somewhere.
That's right. Well, I love this. I got to read this quote because you're talking about being real. And one of our friends, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, shared this quote that I love in your book, The Standard. It says, there are very few people you meet in life who come in swiftly and completely, causing you to level up instantly, inspire you to be better, communicate clearer, and they teach you to create massive impact. Ben is hands down one of the masters at this. In his book, he talks about that, transformative and also trustworthy. I don't know how that makes you feel, but I'm listening to these words. I'm like, that's Ben, that's being real. And you've shifted my life. And people that are listening today, if they're honest with themselves as they go through this, they're going to find areas that they've been negating. And so I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit. Do you think people are aware of those blind spots?
You know, I think there's a lot here. First off, when I hear those words from Dr. Lyon, who is my physician, she's a dear friend. She's somebody that I look up to. That's a very humbling thing when you hear that that's how she thinks of me and that she welcomes conversations for me to help her. And, you know, it's interesting. 70% of my work is corporate. People look at my backdrop and they see everything that I do in sports. They think all I do is sports. 70% is corporate. Only 30% is in sports. And most of what I actually do, people don't even know and they don't even understand. It almost happens behind the scenes. And when I hear things like that and I think about the depth of the relationship, ways that Dr. Lyon and I have helped each other, the unseen conversations that you and I have had, I go back to how we started, which is to say there's a uniqueness about you where you're willing to accept responsibility and take action. Most people think, well, no. Brian Covey's very successful. I mean, your success in the mortgage industry, even during the last 24 months, which I know has felt like being in a fight with Muhammad Ali 24 hours a day. Yeah. You've still driven uncommon success during that period of time. So you could have all the ego in the world. Yet when you and I had a conversation about our program, Coach to Coaches, where we literally take people behind the scenes, the 19 years of what I've done, where I literally show people, okay, this is what I actually do in my work. You were like, I'm all in. Let's do it. And that to me is the difference, Brian. It's just like, you know, me being part of, even though I have a mastermind, I'm part of a mastermind with Erwin McManus. You know, even though I'm a coach, I have coaches, because I think we have to check our egos, look in that mirror and go, I could get better. Like, this is an area where I can get better, and I don't think I know the answer. And so I think that is the willingness to check the ego and go all in with something new, knowing that you could learn something. A lot of what I've shared with you, you probably already knew. It was probably already intuitive for you. You were maybe already doing it. But if I could share one thing that makes a shift, and then in that same conversation in our relationship, you share something with me, we're both winning. And that's what I think it's all about.
I love that. So I actually listened to a quote today from Erwin since you brought him up, and I will share one of the things that you've taught me, and I'd love for people to hear this and you to expand on it, is you work with great athletes, but you also talk about corporate America. Like, you were a financial advisor, top in the country, top in the company. And so you have this background that when we were having conversations, we're going, okay, Ben gets it. The pressure of the ups and downs of the cycles. And Erwin shared this that really stuck with me, this quote. And he was talking about the difference between talent and discipline. And if I were to take one thing, when people ask, like, hey, what has Ben done for you? Like, the coach to coaches, going to the boot camps, doing this. I go, you taught me that discipline matters more than talent. And for parts of my career and as an athlete, talent got me certain accolades, certain awards. But later in life and in business, and to win as a dad and a husband, discipline. And you talk about discipline wins all the time. You've drilled that into me such to the point that I literally hear it. And it's like, when I don't want to go do something, I'm reminded discipline beats talent. But I thought of that because I've even got that confused in my journey. And so I'd love for you to talk about that, because you talk about discipline wins. I mean, you get these texts coming to us and I get fired up like, let's go. But I don't think people understand discipline the way you've explained it. And now I believe changed my life.
Well, it's one of the things. We were sitting at Erwin's mastermind group, and there are all these individuals leaning in, wanting to get better, listening to one of the masters, in my opinion, of communication, Erwin McManus. And he just literally says that confidence does not come from talent. Confidence comes from discipline. And it just hit me, and it was like, man, there's so much truth to that. Think about Kobe Bryant. Think about Michael Jordan. They were gifted with all the talent in the world, but their confidence came from their discipline. It was the work they were willing to put in that others were unwilling to do. And then the reason why we know Kobe is Kobe and Jordan is Jordan is because they took all their talent and became so disciplined that when you bring the two together, you wind up with a GOAT. It's the greatest to ever do something. It's the same as we've seen with Simone Biles in these Olympics. It's the same that you've seen with Katie Ledecky. Was Katie Ledecky talented in the pool? Absolutely. But to beat somebody and to literally have in your race the top 20 times of all time, there's things she's doing in the pool. You listen to the details of it. She only trains against men. So you're going against men, and you're going against the man every day in practice who set the world record in the 1500. Well, no wonder Katie Ledecky is destroying her competition, because she's willing to train against people who are going to destroy her. She didn't go, I'm talented, I could beat people. She said, I'll have extraordinary discipline that others are unwilling to have. And that, for those of you that are listening, I get it. I don't have the athleticism of Simone Biles, Katie Ledecky, Kobe, or Michael Jordan. But when it comes to the business world, if I look back on the periods of time when I've been most successful, extreme discipline. Mm-hmm. And then when you realize that's how you win, that's when I made a choice years ago to say, why would I not show up like this every day? Mm-hmm. So as an action step, this would be meaningful for Brian and I, would be for you to think about the period of time when you've been most successful in your life. Reverse engineer that period of time. You might be in the middle of it right now. May have been 6 months ago, might have been 2 years ago. And say to yourself, what were my disciplines when I was that successful? And then guys like Brian and I, all we want you to do is just take action and say, what if I repeat those disciplines every day, and I take it one day at a time and begin the process of stacking those days? What happens to your success then?
Well, and you talk about this with the prize fighter day and some things that we've gone through and starting to attack these little details and areas. And I love that reflection, because I've gone back to it a few times of what was I doing in those seasons of success? What were the disciplines? What time was I getting up? What was I eating? What are my workouts? What were my calls? What were my sequences? Like, what was I learning? What were the coaches I was working with? You start to put all that together. And I love how you say reverse engineer. we oftentimes make this so complicated. And I know I was brought up with this saying that I'd love for you to unpack a little bit of trusting the process. And one of my favorite things you say, Ben, is attack the process. And I'm reading this in the book because I'm preparing and I'm going, man, just a new way to think of it. I even have people today that will come to me at least once a week and go, I'm just trusting the process. Let's talk, what's the difference? Because I love the way you've coined this, and it got me to shift my brain and my mindset.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally a chapter in the book, The Standard, dedicated to the fact that trust the process is not enough. You have to attack the process. And so to me, when I hear trust the process, that's like, okay, I know what the process is, and I trust that it's going to work out. How could you possibly tell me that that's enough? Until you know the process, understand the process, trust the process, but then with intentional focus decide, I'm going to attack that process every day, you'll never understand your highest level of performance. And the attack piece is the work piece. The attack piece is the piece that separates you from the people who just say, oh, I trust it and somehow it's going to work out. That's not attacking opportunity. And so I believe we have to have this attack mindset, doing the things that we know we need to do, and then the little things that other people are unwilling to do. Those are the unrequired pieces that I believe help you channel, understand, and figure out what it truly means to be your best.
Hey guys, it's Brian here. I hope you are enjoying the show. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur looking to grow your personal brand, make a bigger impact, maybe increase your leads and grow your revenue, let's help you get started today by connecting up with my friends over at the Brand Builders Group. You've heard me talk about them, but if you're new here, this is definitely the first step to get you started in turning your reputation into revenue. Head over to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. Again, to set up your free brand call, go to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey to set up a free strategy call with one of the team at Brand Builders, and they will dive into your specific goals for how you want to grow your personal brand. I can't wait to hear how it goes. As I think about the language that you use, and you're very intentional about this, and I've really gone back to that of what's the language I'm speaking to myself. And I've seen this recurring theme lately from like Jamie Kern-Lima, right? She spoke at one of our last events, and people's self-worth. And I start thinking about, I'm seeing that, and people have, they call them limiting beliefs and their identity. And it's this theme that I see. What do you see, Ben, for people to be able to break out of where they might have like John Maxwell calls law of the lid, right? Like we've heard it coined so many different things, but how do people break into that next level?
Yeah. So I always think back to 2017. I'm sitting in Nick Saban's office. So I had a dream in 2012. I want everybody to pay attention to the timeline here because it's not a short, fast timeline. So in 2012, I started telling myself that I am working with the Alabama football program. In 2012, I had to create, which is a whole nother story, a street sign to get Saban's attention because you can't send him a letter. I literally make this street sign. He hangs it in his office for 3 years. Finally, after 5 years of me literally believing affirmations, I will do this, to getting his attention, 5 years later, I'm sitting in Nick Saban's office. You're with the GOAT, one-on-one. And he's saying, Ben, what are you going to share with my players? And I said, Coach Saban, based upon the expectations that you've set here, when I walked into this Malmore football complex, I could feel the expectation. I could feel the standard. You can feel it. It's different here. Standard over feelings. Now, standard over feelings is something that I had already learned, believed, and implemented in championships. I was already winning in the NFL with teams, in college football. So I knew it worked. And so I said to Coach Saban, standard over feelings. These players cannot allow their feelings to dictate how they show up. They have to continue to attack the standards every single day. And then I was like, man, I waited 5 years for this opportunity. I'm going to let him know my subtle confidence. So my subtle confidence was, I said to him, when we're working together, if we win 54, so I said, when we are working together. So I let him know, like, I came here to get this job. And so I said, when we're working together, when we win 54-0 on a Saturday, I want these players not showing up to their feelings and being seduced by success. We're number one in the country, we're undefeated. I want those players to say, I want to go break down game film. How can I get better? So that on Monday, when they show up, they've already found on game film what they want to do on Monday to improve, so that by the time we stack Monday, Tuesday, that conversation and me sharing standard over feelings, and then when I delivered it to the players, I believe it was that one conversation that kept me at Alabama for 5 years and 2 national championships. And for people that know the history of Coach Saban, people in a role like mine where you're brought in as a mental conditioning coach, you don't get 5 years with Coach Saban. It's 6 months. It might be one talk, and he says, this guy can't cut it. So 5 years was a long time, but it was standard over feelings. And Brian, that was a message that I was sharing in the corporate world before I ever shared it in sports. So once again, you all might be receiving that as, oh, that's a cool sports story through Saban. It's actually a life story for anybody, everybody listening. You either show up to your feelings, good or bad. Yesterday was tough. I don't feel like doing it. Yesterday was amazing. I'm coming off the best month I've ever had. I'm just going to just take off for a couple of weeks. That's allowing your feelings to dictate how you show up. If we just maintain our standard, attack the process, and keep stacking days based upon your standard, there's no seduction of success. Doesn't mean you'll always win at the same level all the time, but you will maintain winning even when it gets tough.
Man, I love that story. Every time you tell it, and I think for people to go back, it took 5 years, and the fact that you're able to stay there with somebody that we know, that program in general is difficult. And we hear this standard over feelings. And I love some of the examples you gave. It's one of the things that it's one of my go-to phrases of if something's getting tough or I don't feel like doing something, which happens, repeating that to myself and going forward. And you're right, in the business world, this is happening right now of people not making the calls they should make. They're not going and prospecting like they should make, right? They're not learning new AI technology. Is there anything you would give, especially because you work with a lot of financial advisors, you know the mortgage space, a lot of mortgage people, and I am seeing that right now. Feelings are dictating. This week alone, with rates going up, down, stock market changes, how do they, as professionals, operate standard over feelings every day in that space?
I believe you have to go back to, and we all can do this, no matter your profession, no matter what you do, every single one of us remembers what it was like to be a rookie. So think about that rookie mentality. Because the reality is, Brian, look, the number of high-level mortgage professionals that you work with, right? Let's go back to that mirror of accountability. Most people are not willing to think the way they did when they were a rookie. When they were a rookie, rates didn't matter. Nothing mattered. It was like, I need to eat. So if I'm going to eat, I don't care what the rates are. I will dial the phone until my fingers bleed, until I find somebody that's refinancing, purchasing. I don't care what it is. I'll walk up to people in the grocery store to figure out somebody that needs a mortgage. Like, you needed to eat. That was a rookie mentality. Mm-hmm. Even those professionals, you get to the point where, and most people don't want to admit it, and this is where I encourage you, you've got to get real with yourself. Even if right now you're not, if we're thinking about the mortgage industry, for those listening, and I know that's a big part of your following, for those of you listening, even though you may not be making the money that you once did, I don't think anybody is in the industry, people are still choosing to wait for rates to go up and down. Okay, this is where I can strike, as opposed to just working every day. And the reality is that then you're resting on your laurels of the money that you saved when times were good. If you have a rookie mentality and you say, I'm going to act like there's $0 in the bank account. I'm going to act like I've got nothing. I'm going to act like there's no way I'm going to feed my family unless I go back to doing the things I know I need to do. Now, I preface this by saying, I call them points of contact in a sales environment: text message, email, phone call, right? My voice is heard in the marketplace. I'm open for business. As a veteran, I'm not saying you need to go back to 50 POCs a day if that's what you did as a rookie, because you are seasoned. It might only take 10 or 15. But for you to be doing 0 because you're being calculated and waiting around, that is not a rookie mentality. So I'm not saying go back to 50. You'd fight me on it, and I'd agree with you. But to not do anything is unacceptable. That means I'm resting on my laurels. I'm willing to wait around. There's somebody right now who's refinancing their house. There's somebody who literally has moved from Colorado to Florida for a brand new job, and regardless of rates, they have to buy a new home. Yeah. Well, if you remain active every day, it may be an old friend that you call who doesn't need to refinance right now, who goes, 2 days ago, I talked to my friend who's moving from Colorado to Florida. Let me give you their name. But if you sit in your office, that doesn't happen. You fall into opportunity when you maintain a rookie mentality. So I want everybody to hear this. I'm not saying go do 50 points of contact a day, but you've got to find your number, which is your very best as a 20-year veteran, and say it's inexcusable for me to not at least do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't get any clearer than that. And I love the fact that you bring it up, because it literally just happened. We're having these conversations. And so I'm listening to it because I love learning from you of where are those disciplines? Where are the things? And you're right. There have been some people fighting even this week of rates have dropped. I'm like, somebody's calling them. Somebody's going to get to them. It's either going to be you or your competition. And I love that, because I do agree. The 50, like some of the programs teach, the excessiveness burns some people out. But the fact that some are not even making 10.
But my point of sharing that is, as a veteran, your Rolodex is so thick, you're not going to have to make 50. You'll be just doing 10 a day, and you work 20 it's 200. Like, just you operating on those 200 dials and phone calls and conversations is going to build a pipeline that's going to keep you busy and help you make more money now, even in a bad market, than you did when you were doing 50 as a rookie.
That's right. Yeah, the quality and everything.
Exactly. Because they've earned the right. You've done the work to have relationships that are far greater. I remember when I was a financial advisor, sure, it was a blessing. I got to top 1% in the industry as an advisor, which gave me the opportunity and the platform to go and speak for the first time. I remember my first year in the business, there was one day, Brian, I was in a trailer park in St. Louis, Missouri in the morning. And that afternoon, I was in a high-rise in downtown St. Louis overlooking the arch in a top 10 architectural firm in the country. Same day. And so, by the time I exited the business, I wasn't working in trailer parks anymore, but I had to go through there to get that. So that's my point as a veteran. The work is going to be different, but to not do anything, there's no excuse for that. I mean, you have to realize somebody's watching your behavior, whether it's little eyes in your house, whether it's the colleagues, the people that you're leading. And if you're showing up that way, subconsciously, you don't even have the right to hold somebody accountable to anything, because you can't even hold yourself accountable.
So true. Bringing some good fire today. I love this.
And look, this is the point in the conversation where some people are like, I don't like this guy anymore. And you know what? That's fine. I realize I'm not for everybody, but I've been blessed to work with some of the highest performers to ever walk the face of the earth. And so you wanted to have a real conversation around, what do the highest performers do? This is what they do, and this is how they show up. And it's not for everybody. Some people say, I'm okay to never find out what my greatest looks like. I don't understand that. You don't understand that. I don't want that to be me. I don't ever want that to be my kids. I want them to be their very best no matter what they choose to do. But these are the real conversations that I don't think a lot of people are having these days.
They're not. And I hope people hear this as you need people like Ben in your life for these very reasons of these are the tough conversations that get you to think and act differently. And you talk about this a lot, about your habits and about people's beliefs and actually moving forward. And I love this here. You say your success is not just about changing your habits. It's about changing the way you think. One of my favorite quotes that you have. And tell me about what that means, because somebody probably reads that and goes, hold on, I've been told, like, my habits. I've read the book on habits.
Yeah, you have to, I'll frame it to you this way. give yourself permission. So if I were to say to everybody, think about that one big goal, that one big dream. I'm going to work for Alabama football. Brian, when I was telling myself that, I was still growing this business as a speaker and a coach, and I was still a financial advisor. So you go back to 2012, I was growing 2 businesses. People would hear me say that, and they're like, what are you talking about? You're meeting with somebody in the afternoon about financial advising, and you're going to go work for Nick Saban at Alabama? What are you even talking about? But I had to be willing to think that big, to give myself permission, and it didn't matter what somebody else thought. It mattered what I believed I had in me, what I could do. And I think for all of you, you owe it to yourself, regardless of politics, regardless of the economy, regardless of interest rates. What is that really big goal or dream you haven't given yourself permission for yet? Give yourself permission, and then have long obedience in the same direction with aggressive patience, and hammer the habits, the disciplines, the standards every day. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but you will be able to achieve things that you weren't able to achieve in your life if you thought small with undisciplined action.
So true. In my own life, I love that when the long obedience in the same direction combined with aggressive patience, like I've broken that down, and you've shared that, and we've gone through that. I'm like, that one for me just resonated, and it's given me, like, each day it's one of those, okay, like where am I in this process of doing that? And reminding myself too, like you shared several times with me, Ben, and others, of you're not going to know when it's going to break through. You're not going to be told it's going to be a week, a month, a year, 5 years. But if you keep going after it, I've yet to find the discipline effort didn't create some type of favorable outcome.
Yeah.
You know?
Amen.
Okay, last one. Got to ask you this, because I get this question a lot, and you're one of the men I respect. I mean, you got 2 kids over there and been married 20 plus years like me, fit, running multiple businesses, doing all these things. And I'm looking at that going, everybody's always asking, hey, how do you balance this? How do you integrate that? Like, I just love your take on this all of how do you bend all the people that are counting on you and the way you want to show up in the world so that your legacy does matter? Because that's the question we get a lot of times as men, married, kids, business. How does Ben do it?
So I live one prize fighter day at a time. And those of you that know me well, and you alluded to it earlier, a prize fighter day is a mental training tool that we've been using for over 15 years. And it breaks down. So if you were to take that ideal period of time where you were driving the most success, I'd encourage you to not just think about business. And I bet when I asked that earlier, all you thought about was business. I'd actually encourage you to say, what was the highest performing time of your life personally, professionally, and in your service to others? And I encourage people through what we call a prize fighter day to identify the disciplines and the standards in those 3 areas, and then follow through and make the decision to do those things every day. And when you do that, it takes you to a place where you can have success in multiple areas of your life. It drives me crazy when somebody says, well, you just work really hard and then take time off and go be with your family. Tell your wife, tell your kids, this is a busy season. I'm not going to see you for a while. That's an excuse because somebody lacks the discipline to actually work when you're supposed to work, attack not with focus, but intentional focus, do the things you know you need to do, also serve people, give of yourself every single day. And then when it's time to be at home, you get home and you lock in with your family. You lock in with your loved ones. You lock in with your significant others. And so balance doesn't mean the exact same amount of time. I think it's balance that every area of your life has importance that you're willing to attack every day. And that's what I call prize fighter days. And those individuals who say that you can't live that way, they just lack the discipline to live that way. So they would never tell you to do it because they don't have the discipline to do it themselves. And it doesn't mean that I'm a perfect husband, doesn't mean that I'm a perfect father, doesn't mean that I'm a perfect businessman. I'll never be perfect. The only perfection is upstairs, in my opinion. So for me, you're going to get my damn best every single day because every day is a gift. And so if we can design and implement strategies or prize fighter days where we can have important areas of life and attack those multiple areas, you will win in your marriage. You'll win as a father, as a mother, as a friend. You will win in business. That's what I believe.
Love the way you framed it. I think more people need to hear that. And we're going to share a gift with everybody. So we'll have it in the links, but we're going to give you a link to the Prize Fighter Day. Since something Ben's been working on with me, I want to give that as a gift. Everybody listening, especially since you stayed till the end, we're going to make sure you have that, because I know it's been one of the tools and resources for me to help me move things around. And what Ben just shared with you, I can tell you it's possible, not just in my own life, but people that I know Ben has coached, that I've been able to coach and work with. And I love that part about it being of service to others. And I just want to commend you as we wrap, as you've impacted my life more than you know. And there's so many people, this ripple effect that I'm watching the mental toughness forum, and all these people coming and all these people commenting on it. People are like, hey man, I'm listening to Ben and I can hear parts of Ben and when you were coaching us. And I'm like, greatest compliment ever is those things that you've taught guys like me and this Coach to Coaches, which is now exploding. I see all the classes. I just want you to know that is starting to get spread, and that is starting to make a massive difference. Even when you're not in the room, people are feeling that effect of Ben Newman.
So I can't thank you enough for saying that. And that goes all the way back to how we started this conversation, which is, what do I love about Brian Covey? Brian Covey takes action. And, you know, you've been a great connector for me with, you know, if I just look at you giving me the opportunity to come and speak, you invested in the opportunity for me to come and meet your team. We'd never met in person. It's like we're old friends that had met, 10 years earlier. And you introduced me to Rene Rodriguez, which has turned into a great friend. We've done so many great things together. He's speaking at our Puerto Rico boot camp in October. There's all these amazing things because you're a catalyst to serve. You're a catalyst to take action. So I think for us, the beauty of the relationship, I hope people are listening, it's iron sharpens iron. It's that we're invested together to be able to help each other. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why I love being in your corner, and I appreciate you.
Oh, brother, I appreciate you. And guys, as you listen to this will be one I know I'm going to go back and listen to as well. Make the notes. If something stuck out to you, reach out to us and let us know how we can best serve you, as there's lots of ways to plug in. We've shared a lot. We've gone really fast. Some of it may be a little overwhelming. And I'll tell you, I've been there and others have as well. Reach out and just ask for help. As Ben shared there, it's one connection, one conversation. You're just that one decision away. So reach out to us. And as always, leave us a review. Make sure you share this with friends, family, people you work with, that you know that you could make an impact in their life, because I believe these conversations are the catalyst to change, and that's why we do this. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next episode.